Hello and welcome everybody to another GRL podcast for season 6. It's the third time we meet here for our podcast series this season, and this time it was for the first time ever in GRL history a mystery round for all 4 divisions this week. And we had the choice between Interlagos in Brazil, the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi, and also Baku in Azerbaijan. So 3 very different circuits. Abu Dhabi with long straights, but also twisty last sector. Brazil, classic racing circuit with also quite some overtaking opportunities in the first sector in particular, and many corners in the middle sector. But then also we've got the streets of Baku, which at least one division had to master this time around. I'm here with Panda and Fanta again, and I think we just start off as always with our Division 1 race. And Division 1 raced each other at Abu Dhabi, where it was ART Exotic Planes who got pole position to himself with a 1:22.015, but he did not win the race. It was actually Kont in the Haas. So the Italian has now also officially joined that Haas team as full-time driver, but in just over 42 minutes he completed this race and picked up his first GRL victory. In second, it was Atom myself, 8 tenths off him, with Exotic Planes, the pole sitter, in third place for Alpine. Then we had in fourth Nardo, who crossed the line first, but one in-game penalty and one post-race penalty demoted him down to P4. Rob Kelly then in P5. So him and Nardo actually had the exact same finishing time in the end due to Nardo's 3-second time penalties. But Nardo was crossed the line first, so he gets that extra few points. Then we had Dylan Batter in P6 and boosted RB in 7th. He actually crossed the line second, but a 5-second time penalty and the 3 points deduction did not help his evening. Thierry Dom then in P8, he also picked up the fastest lap on his debut, with Gauzy in 9th for McLaren, and Blade, who was fighting some controller issues, finishes 10th, but remains in the championship lead. Further finishes outside the top 10 were ART Jubbo, One Day RM Beeford, Silagi, and ART Jordan, while Jordan actually retired in the last sector of the race. Have I disconnected? Yeah, so where do we start again? Because I've got no clue. Where I cut off.
You just finished the top 15, so we can just go into the standings if you want.
Yeah, let's cut it there and then, yeah, okay, good. In the driver standings, it's still Blade who leads the way with 53 points, while Atom myself is now in second, gaining 7 places in the standings with 36 points. Exotic Planes then in third, like in that Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, with 33 points, 2 points ahead of TQB and Kont, so the Italian climbs up by 10 positions in the standings, while the Belgian driver actually loses 2 and drops from second to fourth. Gauzy then in P6 in the championship, level pegging with boosted RB, with ART Jordan now in P8 on 22 points, same points as Nardo and Beeford, while Rob Kelly's now in 11th with 20 points. In the Constructors' Championship, Williams lead the way with 75 points, most of them obviously scored by Blade, with Red Bull in second with 58 points, 3 points ahead of Aston Martin. Ferrari sit then in fourth with their driver pairing of Dylan Baxter and RM Beeford, McLaren in P5, Alpine in P6, passing Sauber, who is 7 points behind the French team. Mercedes then in P8 with 23 points, Haas in 9th with 21, and the Racing Bulls in 10th with 7 points. So looking back at the race result, certainly a very interesting podium. While after getting pole, Exotic Plains probably was the favourite to win this race, especially as championship leader Blade struggled with issues on his pad. He actually had no vibrations for the whole qualifying and race, so he really struggled to keep the car facing the right way. But also his Williams teammate Nardo, who seemed very, very quick lately, only started in P8, and he also obviously picked up his penalties, which did not help him to win that race at all. But after a few laps, it was quite clear that Kont could actually fight for a podium, and in particular in the pit stop phase, he undercut the top group actually and put himself into the net race lead after the pit stops, which caused him to have, I believe, a 2-second gap to Boosted, myself, Exotic Plains, and many others, which made him control the race from there onwards. After that, also, Boosted obviously picked up a penalty after the race that was due to him rear-ending Nada in the chicane. But before that, also Nada was involved in an incident as he half-spun Dylan Baxter in the Ferrari, who in the end came P6. So the Williams driver involved in 2 incidents, one of which he was at fault, one of which it was one of his rival cars. Yeah, I mean, obviously Blade leads the championship still by a very solid margin. But what we certainly should not forget is that Australia, which is obviously next week's race, which is round 4, will likely be his last race for a while, because he'll miss 4 to 5 races just because he'll be away and not near his Xbox. So the championship will get a lot tighter and a lot more difficult for him, particularly looking at his rivals though. It's very closely packed still, obviously with myself and Exotic leading that pack, but also TechUB, Cons, Gauzy and Boosted look very, very strong. While you're further down, Nada, obviously in P9, who looks very fast. B4, you never can count the season 3 champion up, but also Rob Kelly, Tony Wright, and Dylan Baxter seem pretty solid indeed. So it will be interesting to have a look at who keeps it consistent in these next few rounds. Exotic Plains actually has not won a GRL race yet. TechUB has won 2. He's obviously won the season opener, and he maybe is also someone we have to look at again, because after only finishing in P10 at Hungary, he's DNF'd at Abu Dhabi in this mystery round, and the lack of practice probably has hurt him quite a bit, because yeah, losing that many points to your rivals in the early phase of the championship is certainly not what you want. But yeah, so that's Division 1 wrapped up basically. So as you can see, Blade leads the way, but behind him, and especially looking at his absence in a couple of weeks, this Division 1 championship is about to get very, very interesting. And they've got more contenders after 3 rounds than we were hoping for even at draft night. So that will be certainly very interesting indeed. In Division 2, they weren't in the desert to race at Abu Dhabi, but they were in South America at Interlagos to race at Brazil, where it was a European driver in the end who won out, because it was AMS Partik, the Hungarian driver, who also won the season open at Kota with a soft medium strategy from P15 on the grid. He secured himself the P1 spot in the race, just beating Thomas de Koning in the Red Bull by 38 thousandths of a second. In third place, we had AMS Atomic in the Alpine. So once again, after not having the best of grid positions, he's had some stellar race pace to prove himself as the number 1 in that Alpine team in Division 2. Oj then finishes 4th once again for the Racing Bulls, so he's certainly pushing in the drivers' standings. Sintium then in P5, he's gained a position after penalties, with Whitejosh in P6 and Guyton Cass in 7th. So Partik's teammate losing a couple of points this time around. Neb Restrom then in P8 for Red Bull, the winner of the Hungarian Grand Prix, where we obviously had the custom weather round. Only 3.8 seconds off the race winner in the end, but only P8, so he certainly lost some more points now to the Hungarian of Partik. Tiddly Lewis in P9, he actually finished P4 in the race, but a 10-second time penalty, or rather 2 5-second time penalties, and a deduction of 6 points certainly will not help him or his team. In 10th and 11th, we had the two Mercedes cars of BOTQ and AJ Nolan. While rounding out that grid, we had Aram Lawn in 12th, Flame, Raven West in 14th, Park in 15th, Stormy, FIFA Lord, 4 laps down with a 4-stopper, but he picked up the fastest lap at least, which will not give him an extra point, but that in the end of the day is his problem. Sonic and Knight retiring from the race early on. Knight also picked up a 5-second time penalty with a 3 points deduction. In the driver standings, it still looks like the Green Machines are on for a domination this season. Partik with 61 points, leading the championship by 15 points over his teammate, while Neb Restrom is 3 points behind Guyton Cass. Epic Oj then on 38 points, with Atomic now in P5 of the standings with 29 points, 4 points ahead of Thomas de Koning, who apparently is now on holiday, so he'll miss the odd race. Whitejosh then same points as the Red Bull driver on 25. Partik had that amount after the first round already. ART Ronan in P8 with 20 points, so he's already missed 2 out of 3 opportunities to pick up points. So we'll look how he does next weekend. Parker then in P9 with 19 points, and Raven West in 10th. So the former GRL champion and third place finisher from last season's Division 2 needs to push to get back up there. He's only 2 points ahead of Aram Lawn in the second Ferrari. In the Constructors' Championship, it's the same pictures in the drivers. Sauber seem to dominate. They sit on 107 points, while Red Bull are in second with 71. So Thomas and Neb Restrom certainly have done well so far, but they need a bit more to really challenge those Saubers. Alpine then in third with 57 points, so Atomic and Sintim have picked up solid points. Just need the consistency of Team Honor Sintium to fight the Red Bulls up ahead. Haas and Mercedes both move up a position, passing Ferrari, while Williams are now in 7th with 22 points, 5 points ahead of Aston Martin. The Racing Bulls are not last anymore. Epic Oj puts them out of the minus points. They sit now on 4, while McLaren drop down to 10th as they sit on 2 points. Once again, looking at the race and the strategy, obviously very surprising that Partik started in 15th and the soft medium strategy could gift him that win, while he certainly obviously not been gifted that all by himself. He really had to work hard for that one. Pitted very late on the softs to put on the mediums and not the hard tires, because looking at the whole grid, the medium hard strategy obviously was the favored ones by most of the drivers, but the Sauber driver made it work. Also, Thomas, after a very difficult race at Hungary last time around, completing over 20 laps on the medium tyre back then, he started on the hards this time to switch the strategy around, went for the hard medium strategy in the end, and picked up a podium for himself, almost to race win actually. So he'll look to move up the driver standings even more across the season when he returns. As said, Alpine double top 5, certainly what that team needed. They've won the Division 2 Constructors' Championship before, and they will be looking to do that again. But yeah, I mean, main talking point probably is 9th place finisher Tiddly Lewis for Aston Martin. I mean, he's dropped down multiple positions with his 2 penalties and the 6 points deducted to not only his name but also his team Aston Martin will certainly hurt them in the overall. Constructors we'll have a look on later, but yeah, that's certainly not what Rob Kelly would have wanted. We've had additional driver transfers in Division 2 as well, obviously. Wargasm has left the paddock, not too surprising after provisional seasons, previous seasons. We've had Beatty Kiwi join McLaren. He'll not be attending next week, but he'll certainly look to pick up some extra points for the Papaya cars in the future. But yeah, that looks to be all of Division 2. The Green Machines are certainly pushing and pushing in these first two races, but maybe we'll see a new winner next week around in Australia. But until then, we'll have a look at Division 3.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to apologise to all Div 3 drivers for how cooked this is about to be. Um, I do not keep up with this, so you don't have the knowledge of the almighty owner Atom about to speak through this. And Koyi, he's sitting in Spain right now, or Gran Canaria, and just he didn't really have the effort to do this. So this is going to be awful. I'm just going to put that out there first. So Skyfeet getting pole with a 24/7. These boys were at Abu Dhabi. So once again, match in Div 1 in the race. I think the only divisions to have the same race, obviously, is Div 4 then had Baku. But unfortunately for him, he couldn't turn it around into the win. Perp Hayes comes out on top with a medium hard strategy, and I don't have the times on here, so I don't know if it was convincing or not, I'm afraid. So can't really go into that. And K's Babu sitting in second, same strategy, followed by the other McLaren, Arwiffle. So a good weekend for them. And then you got Eric in the Mercedes in fourth, Spaldo in the Haas in fifth, Luke in sixth, AV in seventh, Billy Butcher in eighth, Bob ninth, Freezy 10th, Dodo 11th, Juice 12th, Sasku 13th, and then there's the pole sitter 14th. So must have been an unfortunate race for him. Like I said, don't have the knowledge of the Führer, so wouldn't know. And then his teammate in 15th with a massive strategy of a wonderful four stop. So that's some good stuff from him right there. Stone in rounding it out in 16th, and then the non-finishers of Dom, Dams, Cannon, and Apex.
Gap between the top two actually was 2.8 seconds, so you could say stable gap, but
Yeah, so
not too big indeed. So
good
looked
race
like,
from Perpes then
yeah,
to go from 10th to then finish 2.8 ahead of K's, who I raced with pretty much that whole top three last season, but now I'm washed. So Perpes was always, all three of them actually, were always consistently up there in Div 3 last season. So it's good to see that they're still up there and fighting. And Pope Hayes getting the win. And what does that do for the standings? It actually pushes her up 4 places into the championship lead. So that's a great weekend for her. And then Luke Collins is just 10 points behind her. So jumping up 4 places to then have a 10-point gap, that's mental. Um, then Babu, Whiffle, Robe, Koi, all pretty close on points. Obviously, Koi not racing, so drops down the order a little bit. Great consistency from here. You know, starting the season winning, leading the championship, and after 3 rounds sitting sixth. So good stuff from him. Well, you could even argue seventh because then Eric is also on the same points as all of them there. So very close between these is then Skyfear only 2 points below them in eighth, 3 points lower Freezy, 1 point down Millard, and then a little bit more of a gap to Penguin, Juice, Spaldo, Butcher, 10th Cannon, AV, Cod, and then yeah, and then let's have a little look at the constructors. So with that strong showing from R Whiffle and Perp Hayes, just pushes them ahead of everyone, almost double Mercedes points. Next week, Monday, could even see it be over double if they have the same sort of showing at Australia. So Mercedes 64, Haas 48, Red Bull and Alpine tied on points with 36. Williams only two behind them, 34. The Racing Bulls on 32. Aston Martin 29. Ferrari 13. Sauber on 6. So, an interesting race. Unfortunately, again, I can't really go into too much detail because just going to say Atom slacking. Look, where's the times? God, despicable. But yeah, Perp Hayes. Great showing from her. Fanta, I think it's about time you said something. What do you think?
Um, Again, I haven't really watched Div 3, so I don't really know. But to be fair, the McLaren's clearly showing who's the bosses of their division with 1 and 3. But as you rightfully said as well, the Mercedes 2 and 4, so they've clearly got some competition. It's going to be interesting between them. But as you said, if they could pull off a 1-3 or a 1-2 again, a 1-2, sorry, come Australia on Monday, who knows? It could be double the points. It could be too far out of reach already. There's still a long way to go in the season, so we'll have to see what happens over the course of the next few races. Depending on who turns up, you never know. Perp Hayes might not be able to turn up for the next 3 weeks. You never know what can happen this early on in the season. We're only in race 3. The rest of the grids, yeah, again, I can't really comment on it too much. It's more just a standout top 4 for me at the moment. The Mercedes and McLaren's both kind of the standouts of the division as far as I can see at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going into Australia for them.
I also just realised I read Skyfee as pole. He got fastest lap. It was actually Dodo on pole. But
Good start.
still, Dodo on pole dropping down to 11th. So technically, the things I said about being on pole and then finishing that low, they all stand. Won't need to repeat them. But just going to back up your point of it being so early on in the season, not necessarily meaning that it's not completely done at this point. Double the points is a great place to be standing looking forward. You just Perp Hayes and our Whiffle can sit there and be like, obviously for Perp Hayes, she's going to be wanting to also push for that driver's standings, but sitting there double the points, there won't be that much pressure on constantly having to be at 110% and getting them podiums, top fives, or just outracing the Mercedes. So it'll be a great place to be sitting for the future, and there's good stuff from them. So now this is where you
Yeah,
can
I
start speak.
mean,
Oh no,
you could
sorry,
also say, like,
go there.
as we now go into Australia and Canada, which are probably pretty tough circuits, especially for the lower divisions, because with all the safety
Shots
cars,
fired.
stuff just gets so more complicated. If you're on a good run of form, you then now have the gap. They seemingly are consistent and have the pace and can keep more calm, which also gives them more options when it comes to strategy and working together. So I think a good vibe, especially going into these two very difficult circuits, could be important because if they mess it up a bit, well, they'll be basically level with whoever does well in the end. If they do well, they could basically double the gap. So I think that's certainly something they'll look at. And yeah, after those races, we've then got 5 races completed, which is already a third of the season. So
To
yeah,
double up
I
on that
mean,
point, you've got, they might nearly have a double the constructors lead, but as you look towards the actual drivers standings, talking about pressure, there's only a 10-point gap between the top 3. So the pressure could crack on Purple Haze, and she could, drop down the order, starts affecting the constructors. So yeah, Whiffle's only 11 points behind, so it really can change drastically over the course of a couple races.
And don't want to
yeah,
question their partnership too much, obviously being teammates. But if our Whiffle has some good races coming up, like you said, only 11 points off her, could there then be some aggro, not so much team working, and then obviously drop down the constructors? I think Div 3 has got, so far looking at it, one of the better fights for both standings in the league right now. It's looking very good for them. But let's move on to Div 4. And if we're on about standings, I think we should start with how big Fanta. We're just gonna
No,
go
we'll save
backwards
it. We'll
here.
save it. We'll save it
Mm-mm.
for our. We'll save it for our downfalls and surprises. I
No,
think we'll
no.
save it for
I
the
think
downfalls and
the way I
surprises.
want to go through this order is backwards, and I want to start with the
Okay.
championship leader coming into this race, finishing 10th, going down to 3rd in the championship. So good showing from him. Ransdale. Now we're just going to jump up to 1st because that's how it works.
Yep.
Obviously. Wait, we're going to start with pole. I'm just going to preface this. Don't know what time you all will be watching this, but it's 11:30. I've been working, so if I sound cooked, I'm cooked. And for Atom, wait a minute, just going to go on a little side note here. What time is it for you, Atom?
midnight. So
Whoa,
perfect time.
good stuff. Let's go. So
Commitment.
yeah, that's what we love to see. Toxic on pole. I think that's his first pole of the season. So good stuff from him at Baku. Just snuck in there. I think it was Ransdale and Liam. They retired quite early
Pole
on.
at Hungary. Second pole.
I thought Ransdale got pole at Hungary.
No, Toxic took pole.
Well, Toxic 2 out of 3.
Yep.
That's what you love to see. But
And
unfortunately,
yeah,
couldn't convert it. Ransdale once again coming out there and winning by just a tenth to Lexus. Throughout the whole race, you could see the front pack going at it. Obviously, it seems a lot closer here, but that was due to a safety car near the end. But Toxic, Lexus, Ransdale, Liam were all going
and
at.
yourself. To be fair.
We're all going at it the whole race. There was just one person in that party, and that's why I've not said myself, that drove like they had no limbs.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, top 3 Toxic, Lexus, Ransdale. We've seen that a decent amount. Not surprising. BTW in
BTW.
4th. Bit of a surprise. I don't know. I've not really seen him much, and then that's not in a. I can't fucking scroll. There we go. Good stuff from him. Ekra, obviously missing last week, comes out 5th here. Stoobsy and McMessy 6th and 7th. J Street in 8th, who a lot of people at the start of the season said, you know, he's got to be up there. Was fighting for the championship last season, so he's probably a little bit upset with himself how he's doing so far. Genchi in 9th, Fanta in 10th, Mike Reed, who has a little bit of driver transfer news, is now my new teammate. So hopefully me and him can go on and I'll drive like I have limbs and he can just keep being consistent. Then you've got Pat Peter, who unfortunately had a bit of a rough show in here. I thought he'd be well up there because on TT me and him were quite close. But only 12th for him. Man in the box snatching, fastest lap 13th, Sparky 14th, Nuki Boy in 15th. I technically didn't finish, but classed me as 16th because I did over the threshold. Monopole Monster, Liam, and then the GOAT Scion in 20th. So for the standings, Ransdale, after just 2 races, only competed in 2 races, won both those races, is leading it by 2 points to Toxic. Championship leader coming into this race, Fanta, drops 2, but not too far off them necessarily, just takes one good weekend to be right back up there. Followed by his teammate, only 1 point off him in 4th, myself in 5th, J Street in 6th. So even though I said he, had a bit of rough, he's been consistent enough to be well up there. So that's good for him. BTW, Man in the Box, Stoobsy, Pat, Monopole Monster, Brownist, Buns, Mike Reed, Ekra, and McMessy. The constructors then, Red Bull and Lexus, with their consistency, are leading Div 4. McLaren with Toxic's pace and obviously Ekra doing good stuff as well. Second, the Racing Bulls in 3rd, Ferrari in 4th, Mercedes in 5th, Williams 6th, Haas in 7th, Sauer in 8th, Aston Martin 9th, Alpine 10th. It's not all too close in the constructors, if I say so myself. You've got Red Bull and McLaren right up there, and then a little bit of a battle between 3rd and 5th, and then just everyone else sort of chilling. Unfortunately, Aston Martin, got minus points, but we don't need to get into that. Oh, Fanta, what you got to say? I spoke too much.
I think carrying on to the winners and the losers of this weekend,
Oh.
I'd probably say winners of this week. I think probably as it's got to be Stoobs and McMessy. 18th and 20th qualifying. I'm not sure if McMessy possibly had a quali back. Oh no, he had an incident at the pit exit, and I believe got disqualified. So them two coming from 18th and 20th, the last kind of spots on the grid, coming to 6th and 7th, picking up some good points themselves, very good. J Street as well, climbing from 16th to 18th. I think overall, for most part of the race, Baku was a challenging track. Deciding to have it as Div 4 was very interesting.
Well, it wasn't a decision, was it?
Yeah,
it was the fate of the gods, the will gods.
But it was definitely an interesting race for this division. Ransdale and Lexus and Toxic clearly showing that they can perform on the best. Lexus as well, qualifying fourth, finishing second after losing out on second and dropping 2 positions in the first race, and then having the disastrous strategy in the second race. To come back and finally get his podium, which I think is well deserved, is very, very good for him as well as for the team. Myself, I'd probably say I hated that track. I don't want to talk about myself too much, but I had an absolute poor showing and got a penalty, which is not on. To be honest, yourself, I think you could be doing better. There got in a few incidents. Obviously DNF'd, as you said. No penalties, so they weren't your fault.
Yeah, what were those incidents? Let's get into the beef.
So, incident. You got taken out, long story short. Put into a wall. That driver has been dealt with, and I will not name them, but they have been dealt with. Okay. Has been dealt with. He is not racing for the rest of the season. Good luck to him. But yeah, obviously without the incidents, and driving without limbs is not very handy for anyone. So hopefully the likes of yourself, myself, to be fair, Pat still not finding the form. Maybe you can find it at Australia. Hopefully McMessy and Stoobs can keep it up. Equa, I'm still not sure if he was ill last week, I believe, so not sure if he's still recovering from that. But still to get 5th, good showing from him. Toxic, Lexus and Ransdale probably going to be up the top again, fighting around Australia. Going on to the standings, yeah, Ransdale and Toxic exceeding the standards at the moment. Different gravy. Can they keep it up though? They might be the 2 quickest, but that also can lead to 2021 incidents. 2 quickest drivers, incidents can happen. Drivers can lose consistency, lose form. So I think after them, from me downwards, it's quite close. Same as when you look at the likes of the constructors, obviously the Red Bulls and the McLarens leading, only 6 points between them, but leading by a bigger margin to the RBs. But the RBs haven't exactly been, top 3 contenders every single race, but the consistency is key for them. So it'll be interesting to see how that carries over going into Australia next week.
Yeah, and just before we move on to do the Div 3 disappointments and surprises, even though, we don't watch it, no disrespect to them. I want to put it out there. There's actually no beef between me and Liam. It was a heat of the moment. Like I said, I was driving with no limbs. I was out braking myself, thinking I could brake later. I was making contact, and then in the heat of the moment, anger took over him. But yeah, I'd actually look forward to racing him again next season because he's a quick guy, and I mean, if he can keep his cool and I can drive with limbs, it'll probably be pretty fun. But let's go into Div 3. I'm not gonna lie, if any of you are watching this, I'm simply gonna go off grid to finish in position. Unless Atom, you know a little bit about this and you would want to say who your surprises were.
I haven't seen too many bits of the race because it obviously wasn't streamed. From what I've seen, you could obviously say Dodo got pole. He finished 11th. He had the pace, just got involved with something. I don't fully know if it was his own fault or not, but I mean, obviously, if you start pole, you would like to at least get a podium, right? Ideally, the win, which he couldn't
No,
even
I can't say
get.
that. You know, I started pole at Texas. Didn't want that win. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think Dodo would have been smart enough to pit on the safety car, though. I don't think he would make that mistake. But yeah,
I'm gonna quit
um,
GRL.
um, coming back to Division 3, where the drivers know that. I think he should have done quite a bit better. It's difficult this week, I believe, because if you look at the top 4 or maybe even top 7, they all have done a very solid job. I mean, Hayes has obviously jumped 9 positions, so she's quite clearly the top performer of the race or of the week in that division. But the others, they all qualified in the top 7 and they finished in the top 7. So it's literally just Dodo and Hayes switching after qualifying to race results. So yeah, no too many sudden surprises. I mean, before the race we knew that Hayes will be good, right? Because she was up there in the driver standings. But before I hand it back over to you, I mean, we said Hayes Whiffle, they are close in the championship now. They might not help each other at every occasion. You could probably say the same about the Mercedes lads of Babu and Eric, because they also, I think, only split by like 10 points. So yeah, they seem the two strongest lineups. So it'll be interesting how they do the next few weeks. But I think positive surprise is Hayes. It's not the biggest surprise. She did well. She qualified only 10th on the race. Very strong job. And yeah, disappointment obviously Dodo. I mean, if you start on pole, you need to do better, no matter what division, because especially V Cup needs those points. And if you don't deliver, you might find yourself out of that seat come the transfer window.
Ooh. Yeah. I've just got to back your point up there. I think, like you said, everyone in the top 7 qualified there, finished there, apart from Hayes. So, like you said, she's obviously got to be the best performer. And then, unfortunately for Dodo, first to 11th, it's just unlucky, and unfortunate. They're both meaning the same thing, but whatever. Um, I feel bad for you making you talk all that. So I'm just going to take it over into Div 3, and this one's even more obvious. Partick winning it from 15th with an alternating strategy from everyone else. Obviously, the two Saubers, they must be working together, same strategy, and the only other person to follow that is actually Raven West. So them two doing very well there. Unlucky for I'm gonna cook this. Gate and Cass, first to 7th, but Partick 15th first. That's just mental. Uh, Disappointment. Gonna go for Flame or Parker. Flame going from 2nd to 13, and then also I can't fully remember what this incident was, but picking up some time penalties and point deductions probably just wasn't a good race for him. And Parker qualifying 4th and dropping all the way down to 15th with a 12-second gap to the next closest person to him. That's just worth. Um, Anyone got anything to add or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're correct with Partick. He's got drive of the day, hasn't he? I mean, not surprisingly with that result. But for me, he probably isn't that standout driver this week, because just before the season, Partick has always been a Division 1 driver. He got the game quite late, so he was placed in Division 2. And everyone who is in GRL for quite some time said, yeah, Partick has to win this division, really, if he wants to live up to expectations. It's yeah, like the Mercedes drivers when real life in the 2014, 15, and 16 seasons. They just had the best car by far, and anything except winning was not really acceptable. Um, I wouldn't say that the gap Partick has to the other contenders is that massive, but just based on where his place is in the community, I think he has to do it, and he always wanted to be Division One. And said, yeah, he's too quick for Division Two, and now he's got the prime opportunity to prove that. So don't get me wrong, he did a really good race and so far a really strong season. But yeah, as I said, I think everyone expects that from him. So he's just about doing what he should do. On positive surprise, for me, it's between two other drivers. It's between either Tomic, who came third after qualifying 13th, or probably, and that would be rather my choice, in why Josh, he qualified 16th in the races before the season. Many people said, yeah, he could be one of the top contenders. Based on times and my personal view on that division, I did not think he was one of the top 10 drivers on this grid, which kind of looked like it so far. He usually has some bad luck as well, which doesn't help his case. But he finished sixth this time for Haas. I think he had a good race. He was only 3 seconds off the race win as well. So I think he had a good weekend, but yeah, just needs to prove that more often because he's certainly come a long way in this league from lower divisions as well, and now really faces his mates in Raven West, and also remember Banshall rejoined quite some time in Nebraska. So yeah, I think he's certainly the biggest surprise for my personal view. And on disappointments, I mean, yeah, you said Parker Dinya qualified fourth. I mean, a soft hard. I mean, that's certainly a very interesting strategy, but probably not too bad considering the hard tires are now pretty good this game. I would say Guyton Cass is certainly a disappointment. I think you mentioned him as well. I said, like in Division 3, qualify pole, P7. That's not enough, especially if you're in the championship lead with your teammate and Neb that was before this race. You just need to do better. I think he was involved in an incident as well, but I don't think that was anything really big from his side. But same for Neb Restrom. I mean, he had a weekend too. I say to forget he was less than 4 seconds off the race win in the end, but qualified 14th, so bad quali. Finishing 8th. Yeah, it's the same thing for those two. They were racing Partick really in the championship so far in the first two rounds, and now they've lost a load of points. So yeah, something to claw back for those two. So expected a bit more from them. I can't lie.
Yeah, well, I got to say that I agree with everything you've said, and uh, very close between this division. It's definitely one to keep an eye on for future races. Obviously, Div 3 for their standings, and Div 2 for how close it looks like they can finish. Heading into Div 1, uh, I'm gonna say my surprise is Rob Kelly. Um, Great race from him, 18th to 5th. Obviously, once again, I don't watch the streams, so I wouldn't know if it was all himself or if he did have some luck going up the order. Um, I've just got to glaze him though because he is my team boss. Great drive, best Div 1 driver, and then disappointment. Gotta go Blade for myself. I believe he was either a race winner or a championship leader at some point. So 10th,
Still
yeah,
is.
he is still the leader.
Yeah, 17 points.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
lucky for him then, he's still in that lead because a 10th in some divisions of how close it is, that'd probably drop you a few positions, as Fanta could say himself, because he finished 10th and he dropped 2 positions
Yeah, not
in the
ideal.
standings. So lucky for Blade, he doesn't drop, and qualified all right. Once again, wouldn't know what happened in the race, but although I think that was he the instant into the chicane, Atom.
No, there was Nada. That was his teammate. But talking about Blade, it was him, obviously, who had the pad problems
Oh
or
yes, yeah,
technical difficulties. He had no vibrations
yeah,
for the whole session. But yeah, as you said, I mean, 10th is not enough if you want to win a championship.
yeah. So very unlucky for him. But would you agree, or obviously would you glaze yourself and say you were the best performer from going 10th to second?
I mean, I agree. Certainly, I would say Rob Kelly, great job. It was because obviously it was racing, so I kind of knew what happened, or at least more than you, I would think.
Yeah.
Um, it was actually just himself in that race. He decided early he wanted the undercut. He did that, and obviously the undercut in Abu Dhabi is and always has been very, very overpowered, and he put himself up into third into after the pit stops, but obviously his tires were a bit too used compared to other cars. So he dropped down a bit. So he certainly did well. A really good race. I mean, qualified 18th. It's just always going to be tough from there, especially in such a tight grid. Especially with all the cars ahead in the chicane. Then thanks to Codemasters, we'll always get that nice bit of smoke in the braking zones, which
Oh,
causes even more lag. So that is very amazing, especially when it's 20 cars going into one of those chicanes. That certainly doesn't distract you at all, especially if suddenly there is an unghosted car sideways in the middle of the thing. So that is certainly very nice indeed. Um, but yeah, you're correct. I would certainly say I think I did better because I qualified 8 places higher. Also had all the tires than the others. I think it was close. I think between Rob and me, who really outperformed the other one because usually we're quite similar on pace. But I don't know how he felt obviously about Abu Dhabi, but I did a bit of practice on every track, and on the race day, I came to the amazing conclusion that I'd rather not want to race any of those three. So that certainly gave me a confidence boost and a half.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I practiced on race day. I practiced a bit of Baku, was sliding everywhere. So I was like, okay, that setup's great. Then I did Brazil. The car was not turning at all. I was like, okay, now I'll just take a break. Then so I didn't practice Abu Dhabi. 825 spun the wheel. Track was Abu Dhabi. Was like great. That certainly looks good. I mean, I knew Abu Dhabi I was always good at on the previous games, but this game it just didn't quite click for me. But in the race it worked nicely. Just try to stay in the train and not get past. And yeah, I mean, I knew Boosted will get a penalty. I was the reason that he got ticketed in the end. So I was like, Boosted's a bit faster than me, I think. I'll just stay behind him and then I'll get him the post race penalty and just pick up the position. And like that, nobody can pass me in the train because I've got the DRS as well, which worked in the end. So I think that certainly was one of my strongest and most consistent races, especially after having 2 warnings after 2 laps. I was a bit scared that that could happen once more.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, I think that certainly was a good race, and yeah, it's an early podium in the season, and especially being second in the championship with such a close grid is something I'm happy about. Looking to push for more. Maybe I'll qualify 18th next time, so get drive of the day.
Purposefully, yeah. Good stuff. Well, if you're not leading the championship after Australia, I personally say you step down as owner because it just wouldn't be good enough. But now I think we've avoided it a little bit too long, so we're going to go into the overall constructors, and we've got a familiar face leading it. I don't think at any point so far this season they haven't been leaning it, and it's Red Bull on 234 points, with McLaren just 29 points off them with 205. Then Sauber with the good showing in Div 2 as always, third in 170, tied with Williams. And then Mercedes just 6 points behind them in fifth. Alpine 145, Haas 140, 10 points off them Ferrari, 3 points them Aston Martin, and then 40 off of them the Racing Bulls. And whilst on the topic of overall constructors, Adam, how about you tell him about the record-breaking weekend Aston Martin had?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly interesting just looking purely at the points scored before penalties. It was not VCARB this time, who actually had the least points scored. At the first place, it was Aston Martin, who scored 27. And then the Studing report just put the cherry on the cake, really, because Aston Martin obviously had to sign a Division 4 driver because Lawrence Stroll figured out that Skion was not living up to expectations ever in his 17 years of existence. So Skion realized it as well, though, and stepped down, which meant that Aston Martin had to sign a driver, picking up another point deduction after also some penalties costing them, which meant Aston Martin, after 4 races of round 3 this weekend, have ended up with -1 point scored. So they've actually lost compared to last week, which is record breaking, and I don't think that will get beaten anytime soon, at least not by any other team.
Yeah, so from last week at Jesus Christ, Hungary, um, scoring the most points to now here at the mystery race, scoring the least. So good consistency from us in the Aston Martins, if I do say so ourselves. There's no team like us. People want to be like us.
That's for sure.
You all want to be like us, really. But unfortunately, we're just different. We are built different. I think we've actually only got like 1 or 2 clips to show this week. I'll just quickly share my screen in this. Oh my god. So there's that for you two. Once this loads, we'll have a clip for you guys.
I mean, certainly, once again, looking at the overall, Red Bull, as you said, still having a solid gap over McLaren, but behind them, it's still really, really close. Like Sauber, Williams, and Mercedes split by 6 points only. So they have certainly got a fight on their hands with each other. Mercedes actually had 174 in third. But yeah, a signing in Division 1 again, giving me my third full-time teammate, who hopefully this time finally turns up. Cost them another 10 points. Yeah, then I think it was basically like we said last week, wasn't it? Where we had those top 5 teams in Red Bull, McLaren, Williams, Mercedes, and then Sauber, who are in there now just because how well they do in Division 2. And then the bottom 5 of Alpine, Haas, Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Racing Bulls, who are basically Formula 2 at this point, just because how far back they are. But yeah, it's really on those bottom 5 teams, I think, to gain points on the top runners, because otherwise it will, especially at the top, be a 1 or 2 horse race between Red Bull and McLaren at this time, like it is in real life, actually.
Okay, don't pause when I tell you. Goddamn. Yeah, well, thank you for building that moment. The link Fanta had sent in before the starting of us doing all this, it did no longer want it to work. So got it back now, and we can watch this man. I don't even know. I haven't seen it. So let's make this full screen for you, Fanta. Let's give you the limelight. There's a lovely little switchback. Where'd you learn that? Where you
Skill
been
school, mate.
hiding that?
Skill school.
Skill school, yeah.
Yeah.
and did something you don't see often in Div 4, going wheel to wheel safely. I don't think there was any contact at all for that whole.
I mean, it didn't quite work that well at turn 1 with Skion, from what I remember.
We don't need
I
to
mean,
see that clip. We don't need to.
I
Don't click on my
mean,
profile. Don't do it. No.
Oh wow, there's a few college football ones here. There about. Oh dear,
That one, yeah.
this one.
Bottom.
Oh,
No.
shit.
I mean, this that was
My penalty clip.
There we go. We're just gonna just make it big. Okay. Here we go.
We
Here's
don't
the
need to
goal.
talk about this one.
This is Lance Stroll-esque.
You've lost
Right
some
here
time
from
to the car
skiing.
behind.
Fastest lap. Where's Fanta even going there?
I just wanted to copy McMessy and get DSQ'd on the pit exit.
Yeah, but I think you need to be in the pits for that, mate. You can't just go through the wall. But yeah, there's a great
Look,
showing.
I got served. I got my penalty. I dropped down to 10th. Sion's now
Yeah.
not here. If you take Sion out of the equation, it would have been fine.
I mean, I think Fanta basically, after this incident, should have done just what champions do, and that's just retire when it's
Exactly.
over.
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone called Andrew, to
To
be
be fair,
honest.
I followed in Andrew's footsteps. I turned left when I meant to turn right.
Was a
Okay,
left-hander.
I hit a wall.
I would be a
No,
bit concerned if you
no,
wanted
no,
to turn
no.
right in a left-hander, you know.
My
Yeah,
argument point is I tried to be too considerate. Okay, I
I
tried to
mean,
turn left, give him too much space.
we also have to talk about this here. This was clearly your fault. I mean, Andrew at least was innocent, but this was just too much. Just purposely turning into the wall so you could push Skion off and have an excuse.
Yeah, look at that
Honestly.
steering wheel. When you're pretty much already into the wall there. Despicable. Let's go on to someone who's probably clearly way better and driving at, might I say, a much better track. Personally, Atom, I think you should have rigged it. This one's got no sound. Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean,
This was in
that's a
overtake
good
of the
overtake.
week.
Yeah, I think he didn't want to send that one in, but I don't think he was too. Oh my god, he was wiggling.
I think it's the contact because I just read it quickly when
Yeah,
Stick
it's
closed down.
certainly
It's
this
where's
game is.
what?
It was a little bit of wheel rubbing. Look, they just tickle each
No,
other's wheels.
no. There's nothing.
Their tyres are in each other. Their tyres are in
Yeah.
each other. If you go back a little bit more, you see their tyres are practically in
back?
each other. Yeah, look.
You mean go
A bit
forward,
more.
G?
Look, they're in each other's tyres. Like this is the game's contact model.
That's Charles
I mean,
Leclerc
just
and
like how you
Vettel-esque.
stopped it there is amazing. I mean, where are the 3/4 of a car's width?
Oh, I think we should screenshot this and put it in a ticket right now.
I'm pretty sure he got a penalty for it.
Nah, different one.
This was actually not ticketed. That's a bit surprising. I mean, Flame in the end ended like 14th, so I think it would have not really affected him, especially considering he crashed with Parker on the straight of the last lap, even
Ugh.
though Parker had
Oh,
20
yep.
seconds of penalties.
Yeah.
So,
But now let's see if we can hopefully find.
overtakes.
Oh, what?
Oh, sending it down the inside.
And didn't work. Failed.
Move rejected.
Oh,
He's still there. And there we go. That's see, that is why Brazil should have. It shouldn't have been a mystery, really. It should have
it should
just
been
been
Brazil, really.
The racing
Yeah,
you
I
can
think
have.
Fanta would have still hit a wall at Brazil. I don't think the track would have changed too much. But that was certainly a nice move indeed. Down the inside of. Don't ask me the corner names. They do have names here. They are way
Just say
too.
like turn 8 or something.
1,
Probably
2,
not.
3, 4, 5.
It's the corner between the first and the
10.
last corner.
It is 10 if I've counted right. Oh, I don't even know. But let's go on to his next clip. Is it going to be a double?
Certainly not.
I reckon he could have squeezed through there. But no, same corner, and this time at least he doesn't have a weird contact model sending him sideways. So pretty decent there on the last lap as well to get himself up that extra position. So
And they actually finished P5 in the end because the guy other than Football Lewis obviously got those 10 seconds of time penalties,
yeah,
which I guess didn't help his race in the end.
I think that's Hungary. Is that Hungary?
Yes, that
Yep.
is.
Oh, that's all the clips. Didn't get many sent in, but then also I didn't ask for them this time. I forgot to, so can't blame you guys. Can only blame myself and Atom because he has no commitment, and
Of
so
course, always me.
always
Why
his fault.
always me, as Mario Balotelli would say.
But yeah, this one's been our longest one so far, as we literally just get over the hour mark. So if you somehow sat here and watched it all, I think you should go not to sleep, go get yourself some energy and buy some Rogue with our discount code. Because at the end of the day, you help us with that code, it can go back into the league. But yeah, thank you for listening. If you have, even if you've had it in the background whilst you hoover in your mum's bedroom for some pocket money. But yeah, thank you all, and we'll see you next week. Well, I might not, but ciao.